Blink may well be the most perfectly scripted 45 minutes of science fiction television ever. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. Given just how well Blink is written, it's doubly surprising at how short a time was spent writing it. You see, Blink was written by Steven Moffat, who first made his name on Doctor Who in Series 1 with the Ninth Doctor, with The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. A fantastic story, one of the all-time greats. And then he followed that up in Series 2 with David Tennant in The Girl in the Fireplace. Also a tremendously amazing story. And that story hints at a kind of timey-wiminess, except that all of the plot elements in it play out in chronological order. Granted, in parallel in two different time streams, but everything happens pretty much in order. But with Blink, he puts that entirely on its head. And the thing is, Blink wasn't supposed to happen. Originally, Steven Moffat was supposed to write the two-part story for the middle of the third series. And because of his time commitments on his show Jekyll, he simply could not produce the needed script. That's how we wound up with the atrocity that is Daleks in Manhattan. But I'll leave that aside for now. So Steven Moffat felt so bad about saying he would write the two-parter and then having to decline, that he offered to fall on his sword and write the script for the most hated slot of the season, and that would be the Dr. Light episode. See, for most of the BBC Wales era of Doctor Who, the season was specifically structured to have one double-banked episode, an episode where the Doctor appears very little in the story, thus allowing an entire second film crew to be filming one story, while the lead actors are off in another location filming another story simultaneously. That was supposed to happen in Series 1 with The Long Game, where the Doctor and Rose were going to disappear for the majority of the story and just have it focus on the one episode companion, Adam, who failed terribly. But then, as that particular story developed, the role of the Doctor and Rose grew quite a bit, and so it didn't quite work out that way. But we definitely saw that in Series 2 with Love and Monsters. And that is an extremely polarizing episode. A lot of people really hate that episode. Personally, I really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's unique. It does things that Doctor Who had never done before, and I thoroughly enjoy it. But I get why some people don't care for it, and that's fine. But that brings us to Series 3 and its Dr. Light episode. And so Steven Moffat decided to take a short story that he had written a couple of years previously for an annual and repurpose it into a standalone story starring Sally Sparrow. Now, in his original short story, there were no weeping angels, and Sally Sparrow was a young girl, 8 or 9 years old, I think. In this story, he made her an adult, and he invented the weeping angels to pad out runtime and to create a real sense of threat. And the incredible thing is, he wrote the story virtually overwrite. He says it's the fastest thing he ever wrote. He barely remembers even writing it. He went through 2 drafts in virtually no time, and the second draft is almost identical to the final shooting script. The only significant difference was the very ending. In the original draft, at the end of the story, Sally Sparrow, after handing the Doctor the packet of information, was supposed to walk back into the shop and be confronted with a weeping angel and be teleported into the past. But that idea was rewritten and instead given the hopeful ending with Sally and Larry together as a couple and giving them some sort of potential happy ever after. Now, that also, I think, happened because the producers very much wanted Carey Mulligan to come back as Sally Sparrow as a regular companion. They straight up offered her the companion role in the following season for Series 4, which she declined. She was very clear that she was delighted to do this one episode, but that it wasn't the kind of thing she wanted to do long-term for her career. She had other things in mind, and in all fairness to her, she has gone on to great success in film and other television roles. As a matter of fact, just this year, she has a very successful film out, Promising Young Woman, which gets fantastic reviews. I haven't been able to see it yet. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. But in any case, that makes Sally Sparrow a one-off companion and one of the finest in the show's history. And Blink is so perfectly constructed. Every single moment on screen matters. Every piece of the puzzle locks together perfectly. Things happen in a completely timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly way, but they all make perfect sense in the end. It also features a guest appearance by Lewis Mahoney as the older DC Billy Shipton, who you might remember him from the classic era. He was in a couple of different stories as a much younger man. Now, one interesting technical note on this story. The weeping angels in this story were not actually statues. You might think that they actually carved a bunch of polystyrene statues and painted them to look like marble or whatever, but that's not what they did. They actually used actors in heavy statuesque makeup with heavy linen cloths and had them hold those poses. Now, in all fairness, they also used some CGI camera trickery to make the poses absolutely static. But the fact remains that all of the statues were actual living actors performing the roles. And as a matter of fact, I have one of their autographs on my poster, which you can see right there. She was really interesting to meet. In any case, all of those elements together makes Blink one of the most beloved stories in Doctor Who history. In 2 different Doctor Who magazine polls spaced several years apart, it came in number 2 for all-time stories. One time being beat out by, I think, Genesis of the Daleks, and the other from the Peter Davison era, Caves of Androzani, which is a phenomenally good story and well-deserved number 1 placement. And as I mentioned yesterday, it makes Blink a very interesting counterpart to the previous story, Human Nature and Family of Blood, both of which could be considered Dr. Light episodes, except that in the previous story, David Tennant appears throughout the story as John Smith, so from a filming standpoint, it's not. But this is 3 weeks back-to-back in which the Doctor himself appears very little in the stories, and yet somehow it's 3 weeks of some of the finest Doctor Who ever produced. I've said several times before that this sequence of the back half of the season is my favorite single run of episodes in modern Doctor Who. And these 3 episodes back-to-back are absolutely my favorite 3-episode sequence of Doctor Who ever. And best of all, you might expect things to go downhill from here. I've just come off of the high of some of my favorite episodes ever, and yet the next 3 episodes are also very, very good, just in very different ways. I'll see you tomorrow.